People often think that love is the glue that holds a family together. And maybe it is, for a while. But from where I stand, behind this counter, night after night, I've come to realize that the real foundation of most families isn't love. It's money. Money is the currency of obligation. It's the scorecard we use to measure commitment, sacrifice, and ultimately, who truly belongs and who's just visiting.
This is especially true when it comes to blended families. You take two separate units, two different financial histories, two different sets of expectations, and you try to merge them into one seamless whole. But the seams always show. And when pressure is applied, those seams are the first place everything starts to tear apart. It was a Tuesday, one of those slow, rainy nights where the city feels melancholic and the bar feels like the only safe harbor. A man walked in, probably around 60. He was wearing an expensive coat, but he carried himself with the weariness of someone who had been carrying a heavy load for too long. He looked like a man who was used to having the answers, but had just run into a question that stumped him. He took a seat at the far end of the bar, a spot reserved for those who need to confess. He ordered a Macallan 18, neat. A man who appreciates quality, but also needs a stiff drink.
He didn't toss it back. He nursed it, staring into the amber liquid as if it were a crystal ball that showed him a future he didn't want to see. I gave him space, wiped down the counter, let the silence do the heavy lifting. Finally, he looked up at me, his eyes clouded with a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Tell me something, bartender. When you raise a child that isn't yours by blood, when does the obligation end? Is there a finish line?" I paused, considering the question. "That's a heavy pour, friend," I said. "Legally, the line is clear. Morally, that's a different story altogether." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Morally, yeah. That's the battlefield I'm currently bleeding out on." He introduced himself as Mark, and the story he told was a complex tapestry of love, finance, and the unspoken contracts of a second marriage. Mark is a planner, a successful architect. He built his life on blueprints and budgets, on structure and foresight. When his two biological children, Sarah and David, were born during his first marriage, the first thing he did was set up comprehensive college funds. 12 years ago, Mark married Elena. He was 48, she was 42. His kids were already teenagers, their futures secured. Elena had a son from her previous marriage, Liam, who was 6 at the time. Liam's biological father, Mark explained, was a non-factor, a man who paid minimal child support under threat of court order and who saw his son maybe twice a year. When Mark married Elena, he embraced Liam fully. He didn't just tolerate him, he actively parented him. He coached his Little League team, he helped him with his science projects, he taught him how to drive. He paid for the braces, the expensive tutors, the first car. In every outward appearance, they were a united family. Mark was the father Liam never had, but he never formally adopted him. And crucially, he never integrated him into the financial structure he had built for his biological children. Why? Mark's explanation was pragmatic, rooted in the reality of his situation at the time. "I was nearly 50, he said. My peak earning years were behind me. I'd already committed a massive amount of money to Sarah and David's education. To start saving for a third private university tuition from scratch when I was staring down the barrel of retirement, it just wasn't feasible. It wasn't in the blueprints." He and Elena had discussed it,
briefly, early in their marriage. He had explained his financial situation, his commitment to his own children, and his concerns about the future. He assumed Elena understood. He assumed she accepted the reality that Liam's path might look different, that he might have to go to a state school, take out loans, work part-time, the way most kids do. But assumptions, as we know, are dangerous things. They are the termites that eat away at the foundations of a relationship, unnoticed until the floor caves in.
The floor caved in last month. Liam, now 18, got accepted into his dream school, a prestigious specialized engineering program at a private university on the East Coast, an incredible achievement. And it came with a price tag of nearly $80,000 a year, over $250,000 when all was said and done. Liam was ecstatic. Elena was bursting with pride. They celebrated at home, champagne flowing, the future bright and promising.
And then Elena turned to Mark, her eyes shining with expectation. "Can you believe it, Mark? Our boy did it! We need to send in the deposit tomorrow. I'll get the checkbook." Mark felt a cold dread wash over him. He knew this moment was coming. But he had hoped, prayed even, that it wouldn't look like this. He put down his champagne flute. The bubbles suddenly seemed mocking.
Elena, honey, we need to talk about the tuition. Elena looked confused, as if he had just started speaking a foreign language.
What's to talk about? We knew it would be expensive, but it's worth it. This is his dream.
Mark took a deep breath, bracing for impact. Elena, I cannot pay for this. We don't have the money set aside for it. I can help him with the loan applications. I can cover his living expenses, but I cannot cover the tuition. The silence that followed was absolute. The joy in the room evaporated, replaced by a cold, heavy tension. Liam's smile vanished. Elena stared at him, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, and finally to a cold, hard anger. Cannot or will not? You paid for Sarah and David, every penny, without blinking, without question. But when it comes to my son, suddenly the coffers are empty?
Mark tried to explain the difference, the planning, the timing, the financial reality of his impending retirement. It's not the same, Elena. I planned for them since the day they were born. I was younger. I had more runway. I cannot jeopardize our retirement, our future, for an expense this massive. It's not about love. It's about math. But Elena wasn't hearing the math. She was hearing the message that her son was second best, that he was the stepchild, the other.
Math? Is that what he is to you? A calculation? A liability? You stood at the altar and promised to love him as your own. But your love comes with a price tag, doesn't it, Mark? A limit. The argument escalated quickly, fueled by years of unspoken resentments and simmering insecurities. Elena accused him of favoritism, of emotional detachment, of maintaining a secret hierarchy within the family. She brought up every sacrifice she had made, every time she had prioritized his needs, his career, his children. And now, when her son needed him the most, he was pulling back the safety net.
Liam, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. His voice was quiet, but the devastation in it was deafening. "I always knew," he said, looking at Mark as if seeing him for the first time. "I always knew I wasn't really one of you. Thanks for finally admitting it, Mark." The use of his first name, Mark, instead of Dad. That was the knife twist. It was a deliberate severing of the bond they had built over 12 years, a rewriting of their shared history. Liam walked out of the room, and
Mark said he felt like a part of himself had died.
The aftermath was brutal. The house became a war zone. Elena moved into the guest room. The silence between them was heavy, punctuated only by short, sharp exchanges about logistics and finances. The intimacy, the partnership, the shared future they had built, it was all crumbling. Mark felt isolated, misunderstood, and profoundly angry. He had done everything right, hadn't he? He had been a good provider, a responsible husband, a stable father figure. Why was he being vilified for being realistic? Why was he the only one expected to sacrifice? He reached out to his biological children, hoping for some support, some validation. But even they were divided. David, the pragmatic one, understood his father's position. He argued that $80,000 a year was an insane amount of money, and that Liam needed to learn about financial responsibility. But Sarah, the more empathetic one, sided with Elena.
Dad, I know you planned for us, and I am so grateful. But Liam is my brother. You raised him. By treating him differently now, you are confirming his worst fears. You are telling him that he doesn't truly belong. You have the money, Dad. It might be tight, but you have it. This isn't about the money. It's about the principle. The principle. The word hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. Was he sacrificing principle for pragmatism? Or was he upholding the principle of financial responsibility?
The situation reached a boiling point when Elena suggested that they refinance the house that Mark had designed, built, and paid for with his life's work, the symbol of his success, his security. Absolutely not. I will not mortgage our future for a degree he can get somewhere else for a fraction of the price. I have drawn the line, Elena. I will not cross it.
Then maybe we don't have a future to mortgage, Mark. Maybe this marriage is over. The threat of divorce hung in the air, real and terrifying. The blueprint of his life was being torn apart piece by piece. Mark finished his Macallan and signaled for another. He looked older now than when he had first walked in. The weight of the conflict had settled on him, aging him visibly.
He looked at me, his eyes searching for an answer I couldn't give him. So here I am. My marriage is on the brink of collapse. My stepson hates me, and I'm sitting here wondering if I'm a prudent man who's protecting his future or a selfish old fool who put a price tag on his family. Was I wrong? Am I the asshole? I gave him 12 years of my life. I provided everything. But this one thing, this massive financial burden, I just can't do it. Why is that so hard for them to understand? Why does being financially responsible make me a bad father?
He shook his head, the frustration overwhelming him. But then I think about Liam, the look on his face, the devastation in his voice, and I wonder if they're right. Maybe I did keep him at arm's length. Maybe I never truly embraced him as my own. Maybe I was just playing the role of the benevolent stepfather without ever truly committing my heart or my wallet. And now, when it matters most, my true colors are showing.
What do you say to a man in that situation? It's a conflict that transcends logic and reason. It's about the messy, complicated reality of blended families, where the rules are unwritten and the expectations are often unspoken. It's easy to be a family when things are good, but the real test comes when the bills come due. And sometimes, the cost of belonging is higher than anyone is willing to pay. So, I'm handing the verdict over to you.
Was Mark the asshole for prioritizing his financial security and his biological children over his stepson's dream education, thereby revealing the fractures in his blended family? Or was he justified in setting boundaries and refusing to jeopardize his retirement for an obligation he felt he had already fulfilled? Pull up a stool, pour yourself something strong, and tell me what you would do.